Hello there, I'm Kamahl Santamaria. Welcome to a special edition of Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera from the heart of the financial crisis in Dubai. Coming up, comprehensive coverage of what's happened so far, where it might go next, and what damage Dubai's debt revelation has done not only to this emirate, but to the UAE and the Gulf as a whole.
And I'm Dan Nolan. I'll be tracking the rise of Abu Dhabi from the shadow of its brash neighbour. And has Dubai learnt any lessons from this debacle?
So welcome back to Dubai. The second time in 3 weeks we've brought you the show from here, but with very good reason indeed. This is a city, indeed a region, still reeling from the effects of that announcement back in late November that the government-owned conglomerate, Dubai World, of property and investment companies, was struggling with about $60 billion worth of debt. Some would say in the grand scheme of things it's a small number, it's at least a manageable number, but the effects have been huge. Markets in this part of the world have been falling. Overseas markets took a hit as well, but then recovered. But the real question that was raised was about the vulnerability of this city and what's become known colloquially as the Dubai Dream. So coming up on this show, we're going to speak to the experts, people who live and work here in Dubai, to get an idea of what they think of the crisis and where it's going. Before we do that though, I really want to take advantage of our broadcast position this week. We're 42 stories above Dubai, and it's a really good opportunity to give people who perhaps haven't been here before an idea of the lie of the land and how it all relates to the Dubai World story. Speaking of world, it's a good place to start. Look out over here, out to sea, a group of islands which is called the World. It's a Dubai World project, shaped like a map of the world when you're looking at it from the air. Major project off the coast of Dubai. As we come a bit further left, you'll see a sail-shaped building out there on the coast. That's called the Burj Al Arab, the world's only 7-star hotel. Again, gives you an idea of the levels of money we see here. And then as we come further left again, you'll see the business district, or heading into the business district at least. This is Sheikh Zayed Road, heading into the financial part of the town. And really, right now, all roads lead to this part of town because of this enormous structure you're going to see over my right shoulder, the Burj Dubai. It is 800 meters high, 160 stories. It is the tallest building in the world, a real icon of this city. There is an economic crisis going on here, obviously, but you can't help but be impressed looking out over this area at what has been built here in such a short space of time. Got to look at the crisis itself though, and really it's a crisis. There are two issues we have to look at. The first one is the debt itself, and this is how it looks. Dubai World has liabilities, that is the money it owes, of $59 billion. The company now says it's only trying to reschedule the debts worth $26 billion, which kind of came as a bit of a relief to the markets. When you look at it all up though, Dubai has debts of about $88 billion. That's according to Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Its bigger and much wealthier neighbour Abu Dhabi has debts of $91 billion. Which really brings us to the second issue here, the issue of how this has been handled and how it will continue to be handled. The expectation was really that Abu Dhabi would step in and help out. It's got more money, it's in more of a position to help its so-called younger brother Dubai out. That's not exactly how it's happened though. Abu Dhabi has said yes, it will help, but it will be on its terms. So what's going on here? Who's the boss? Is Dubai the financial hub of this area that it thinks it is, or just a pretender to the crown? We sent Dan Nolan about 120 kilometers in that direction down Sheikh Zayed Road to find out.
It's a national holiday when even the foreign workers get to let their hair down. Providing the cheap labour which allows rapid construction, they are helping to make Abu Dhabi a thriving metropolis to compete with Dubai. The celebrations to mark 38 years of the United Arab Emirates come amidst Dubai's financial debt crisis, but for the moment at least, any rivalry is played down.
Well, I don't believe in what people are saying about Dubai now. We are all, it's having Emirates. We're all together. So if Dubai goes down, we all go down. But I think it's such like that. We are all up, alhamdulillah, we are okay. Everything's okay. We are united.
But a sign the tide in this relationship is turning perhaps with Abu Dhabi's attempt at the world's largest fireworks show. It was certainly stunning, but but the kind of display that was once the exclusive domain of flashy, free-spending Dubai, not the fiscally and morally more conservative Abu Dhabi. When the global recession first bit Dubai, Abu Dhabi stepped in with $15 billion in assistance. It says it's ready to help again this time, but won't be writing any blank cheques, which makes for an intriguing period of negotiations between the two ruling families. Nobody may ever know exactly what happens behind closed doors between Abu Dhabi's Sheikh Khalifa and Dubai's Sheikh Mohammed as they work to rebuild the shattered confidence of investors.
Well, Abu Dhabi is in a very difficult situation here. It's a real prisoner's dilemma. On the one hand, Abu Dhabi can't afford the UAE's international reputation to be totally trashed, which it has been over the last few days. On the other hand, if Abu Dhabi does go in and try and take care of some of these bad debts, then they could end up getting involved in potential black hole.
But with Abu Dhabi underpinned by 90% of the UAE's national oil revenues, it can surely navigate some black holes, especially if the reward is a stake in some of Dubai's key assets.
Emirates Airline has a fantastic brand behind it, as does the Dubai Ports operation. These must be the cherries Abu Dhabi wants to pick.
Abu Dhabi has failed to secure a stake in Dubai's pride and joy before, but their own airline, Etihad, now has almost as many plane orders as Emirates. Still, it's a long way off producing the billion-dollar profits Emirates has achieved in the past, and that Dubai really needs more than ever right now.
Now, you saw Christopher Davidson in that report there from Dan Nolan. He's actually the author of a 2008 book called Dubai, The Vulnerability of Success, a very apt title, you might say, right now. He's a real expert on the situation. He's lived and worked here in the UAE. Let's look at a little more now of our conversation with him.
Dubai, of course, has been pretty much autonomous since it broke away from Abu Dhabi all the way back in 1833. It can't really go completely cap in hand to Abu Dhabi or allow this proposed cherry picking to happen where Abu Dhabi might come along and bail out certain components of Dubai. If it does that, then let's say 170 years of history comes to an end. So Dubai at the moment, I think, is holding out for some kind of better deal, maybe even trying to find some external assistance here. I think the Sunday Times disappearing from the shelves on Sunday because it featured negative reporting about rulership in Dubai tells us all we need to know. Under the surface, this was a little more than a dictatorship, and when the going was good, it was trying to style itself as a corporation.
Now, something that's really been in full swing ever since this crisis started is the blame game. Dubai's government hasn't really taken full responsibility for this, instead putting a lot of blame on the international media. We talked about the British press with Chris. Sunday Times, you can't get hold of it here in Dubai or Abu Dhabi at the moment. It's been taken off the newsstands. Also, the rulers of Abu Dhabi even putting a bit of blame on investors, saying they need to take some responsibility. Have a look at this. This is what the Director General of Dubai's Department of Finance, Abdulrahman Al Saleh, said. He said, "It is correct that the government owns Dubai World, but the decision when it was set up was that it should receive financing based on the viability of its projects, not on government guarantees. Creditors need to take part of the responsibility for their decision to lend to the companies." Well, those creditors, they're of course the banks, Standard Chartered, HSBC, Lloyds, Royal Bank of Scotland, Emirates, NBD and Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank. They have now formed a committee of creditors which will begin negotiations with Dubai World. And think about some of those names too as well. Lloyds, Royal Bank of Scotland, weren't they in financial trouble at one point as well? And didn't they get bailed out by their government in Britain? But what has Dubai really learnt from this, from the storm that it kicked off? Has it taken responsibility? Have lessons been learnt? Again, here's Dan Nolan.
While international stock markets only slid for 48 hours, they still haven't stabilised in Dubai and neighbour Abu Dhabi. So far, the slide has erased around $15 billion, on paper at least, of UAE shares, all thanks to a misguided strategy to drop news of a debt standstill just before the Eid holidays, and then going to ground in the hope it would blow over. The only thing that's been blown is Dubai's credit ratings. Port operators DP World are among 6 Dubai government-linked companies to have their ratings downgraded to junk status by Standard & Poor's. Property arm Nakheel is in even more trouble. Its flagship development of 300 man-made islands in the shape of the world may never be finished. Nakhil's official line is that work is, quote, continuing, but we took a flight over them to see for ourselves and found no signs of movement, other than the sea slowly taking back what was once hers. By springing up from the desert so fast, Dubai created something unique in this whole region. But most of the experts say the wheels became unhinged by taking advantage of too much easy credit to invest outside their home turf. In 2007, when the world economy was booming, paying $1 billion to buy Barney's department store in New York might have seemed like a good idea, as did another $5 billion in Las Vegas, developing hotels and casinos with MGM, or even $100 million to bring the luxury QE2 cruise liner into a Dubai port. But the global recession in 2008 came at the worst possible time for such enormous investments. Easy credit terms dried up, and the debt problems were soon to follow.
When you go into ultra-luxury department stores, or if you go into casinos where you do not have an advantage over others, and you pay upfront, if I may add, maybe that's where the errors were made.
Coming from the Emirate of Sharjah, but now based in Dubai, academic Sultan Al-Qasemi provides a fairly honest appraisal of what went wrong. Like many here, he believes the problems have been exaggerated by foreign media. He says the building of 7-star hotels, the world's 5th busiest airport, and the biggest financial centre between Singapore and Europe, all in under a decade, of course requires taking a few risks.
What you do have with a pioneering mentality is that you could risk making mistakes along the way. But if you don't, then you risk being complacent. And so it's a trade-off there.
With no job losses announced as yet from the Dubai World debacle, there's no doubt more pain to come. But it could be a leaner and meaner Dubai that emerges on the other side.
Stick around, Counting the Cost returns in a moment with more from our Dubai Financial Crisis special, when we look in depth at what could possibly be the world's biggest default on Islamic bonds. We're back in a moment.